Come Am I to Curtain Call, a program of reviews and previews of the great art and artists on Maui and beyond. Brought to you by the generosity of Trilogy Ohana, Maui's first family of sailing. I'm Paul James Brown. Before I begin, I have to correct an error in the Pillow Talk review last week. I misidentified Eileen Center as Grace Wiley. She is Kiara Martellus. And Yvette Wright as Kaya Glom. She is Echo Akri. I apologize for the error. Burnn in Love, the Elvis Presley tribute show, began its third year in December. It has been a while since I visited, so last week I went back to see how the show is doing. I'm pleased to report that Darren Lee, the show's star, shows no sign of slowing down. In fact, if anything, the show is better than ever. After hundreds of performances, the show has been refined, and like a fine jewel, the facets have been burnished to a bright glow. From the moment one enters the Maui Theater in Lahaina to the final note, one is embraced by all things Elvis. Video screens show previews of other Maui Theater shows such as Ululena and some snips of Burnn in Love, but the lobby is filled with Mr. Lee singing great Elvis tunes. On a screen, when one is seated in the beautiful Maui Theater where there is not a bad seat, there are tributes to Elvis from Chuck Berry, John Lennon, Jim Morrison, Mick Fleetwood, Dick Clark, and Frank Sinatra. Also, there are trivia questions, such as the name of Elvis's twin brother who died 6 hours after they were born. Then the unforgettable opening notes of Richard Strauss's Also sprach Zarathustra begins. White smoke fills the stage, and slowly Mr. Lee, in a white leather fringed suit and guitar, rises on a pillar to the crescendo of that well-known music which was made famous by the Stanley Kubrick great movie 2001: Space Odyssey. He launches into C.C. Rider, the first of 38 Elvis songs he will sing over the next nearly 2 hours of non-stop music, dancing, and visual entertainment. Mr. Lee isn't an Elvis imitator or impersonator. I prefer to characterize him as an Elvis channeler. Mr. Lee looks uncannily like the King. Unlike the King, he can play the guitar, but most importantly, when he sings an Elvis tune, if you had any doubts about reincarnation, his performance will dispel any you may have had. The only time Mr. Lee is not singing, entertaining, or working the audience is when he is making one of his 8 costume changes. He used to take the audience on the time machine journey from 1957 to 1973. The show is about Elvis's nearly 20-year relationship with Hawaii. Besides making 3 movies and doing 3 concerts, including the first live worldwide satellite broadcast by a single performer, Aloha from Hawaii in 1973, Elvis loved Hawaii and frequently vacationed here. The last vacation of his life was in Hawaii in March 1977. He died 5 months later in August 1977. There are several newsreel films from those 3 concerts which feature the late Tom Moffat meeting Elvis and interviewing him. Besides sounding and looking like Elvis, Mr. Lee has surrounded himself with excellent musicians who add to the overall verisimilitude of the Burnn in Love experience. Maui guy Diane Kai is the music director for the band, who plays keyboards but also wails on the harmonica, tenor sax, and flute. Another Maui performer is lead guitarist Alan Stevens. On bass is David Graybor, and drums it's Chris Carter. The musicians also provide background vocals, but the lead vocalist in the backup group this night was Maui girl Carolyn Leal. Usually it's Felicity Rogas. Ms. Leal had 2 solos, Devil in Disguise and Fever, which cover changes Mr. Lee makes in Devil in Disguise. In particular, I found myself almost dismayed that Mr. Lee was such a quick change artist. Ms. Leal possesses a strong, clear, exciting vocal instrument. Another element that adds immensely to the show's enjoyment are the excellent dancing by Kimberly Payne, Melissa De Lorenzo, Chelsea Moffett, Nicole Yezzi, and Joy Taban, who work as hard as Mr. Lee, and they have 8 costume changes as well. The choreography is exceptionally varied from frug to hula. Mr. Lee breaks the fourth wall early and often throughout the show. He came into the audience and shook hands with as many persons as he could on several occasions. On one, he actually stood on the arms of the chairs while singing Don't and shaking hands. When he sang Love Me Tender, he shamelessly flirted with the women in the front row. He also invited the audience to join in on Can't Help Falling in Love with You, sharing the mic with members of the audience, some of whom sounded pretty good. On Teddy Bear, he threw a prop into the audience for a lucky souvenir from this terrific show. One of my favorite parts was during the Blue Hawaii section, where Mr. Lee, wearing a replica of the Alfred Shaheen designed aloha shirt Elvis wore in the film, points out that he cannot play the ukulele and hold the microphone, So he goes into the audience to pick out a wahine to hold the mic while he croons the Hawaiian love song to her. The woman, who is invariably half of a couple, is transfixed by this moment, and Mr. Lee gifts her his beautiful pikaki lei at the conclusion and escorts her back to her other half. And as he delivers her, he tells the men she'll be going home with you, but who do you think she'll be dreaming about? This always gets a big laugh. There's only one part of the show that is not related to Hawaii, but for me it is so good it could not be left out. It was added after the first year, and it is a recreation of the great 1968 TV concert that Elvis did in the round with an acoustic guitar in the background in a black leather jacket and trousers. For the Burnn in Love one, they had Diane Kai playing the percussion box, and they did a smoking version of Wipeout that I do not remember seeing Elvis perform. Another new element is hula hoop artist Olasesia, who is also Mr. Lee's wardrobe costume mistress. She twirls a mean hoop. Mr. Lee and his entire team, including executive producer Mike Katawar and general manager Rick Dunnage, have made a commitment to Maui. Not only do they do the best show on Maui at the highest level possible, but also to give back to the community whenever and however they can. Mr. Lee regularly appears in the community, and a portion of every ticket goes to the Maui Food Bank. In a little over 2 years, they have provided 75,000 meals for Maui's families in need. For those who purchase tickets at the diamond level, Mr. Lee returns and does a private acoustic show. He will perform any Elvis song that he may not have done, or he will do an encore of the ones he did. On the night we were there, he did Bridge Over Troubled Waters, a little of Don't Be Cruel, and several others. Then he stayed to take pictures and sign CDs. Burnn in Love is a great show that everyone should see at least once. Whenever you have a mainland visitor, turn them on to this show. They will love you for it, and it will be among the highlights of their Maui trip. Burnn in Love runs Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 7:30 p.m. with check-in at 7 p.m. Go to burnnlove.com for reservations. It's great. Go see it. Well, that's Curtain Call for this week. Next week, I'll have a review of ProArt's Cemetery Club. Mahalo nui loa for tuning in to Curtain Call. I'm Paul James Brown. Ahui ho.